Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby Babb. Today we are at the Exchange Tech Summit in London and we have Wael from Equiduct. So how are you doing, sir?
Hello, boss.
And it is my great pleasure to introduce you to Veronica Taylor. Veronica, how are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here at the Exchange Tech Summit.
I'm delighted to welcome Ian Salmon from Adaptive. Ian, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Tony.
And Mike Powell is with us again. Mike,
Hi,
how are
Toby.
you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Very good. So another busy day, the first of its kind, the first Exchange Tech Summit, easy for me to say, and a good one so far.
Yeah, very interesting actually. So we
in your space.
Well, yeah, definitely, and it was interesting to see the 18 guys put this one together, and we were keen to sponsor. Got my CTO on a panel today, so I'm taking a bit of a break. Although you've nabbed me, so I've got to sing for myself for a little bit. But yeah, very interesting and some good panels so far. Actually, what was nice to see was the sort of some non-generic discussion and actually people, a few controversial comments, getting into a bit of detail, real detail around it, which sometimes you don't always get at the conferences. But no, very good discussion.
I was talking about that just now. I think this has been an interesting thing because there is a lot of backslapping at these sort of things sometimes, and people agreeing, and there seems to be some healthy debate on a few of these subjects, which I think is probably in keeping with what's happening in the whole exchange ecosystem at the moment. We're going to talk a little bit about what Deepak was talking about in his panel soon, but tell me a little bit about the themes and what you're interested in, and what the conversations you've been having so far and you expect to have today on it. All right.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting because one of the reasons there's maybe some more healthy conversation is because there's a lot of change happening in the market, certainly impacting trading venues. And when you get change, not everyone is so certain. People have their views, but there's different views. It's not settled.
I think the themes that we're seeing, which absolutely support what we're seeing from the interest in the business that we do, is a growing requirement for technology that meets a new set of requirements around things like 24/7 trading, around much larger scaling for the simple reason that we've started to see a shift towards direct to retail markets.
Retail participation has always been boomed since. Now retail is the forefront of every conversation.
Absolutely.
But in the two panels that we've been at this morning already, like mention of retail has been very frequent.
It is all go for you, the consolidated tape at the moment. Give us a little background to yourself and your OCTP first and foremost.
Yeah, fantastic. So we are super happy to be here because it is perfect timing to talk about the launch of the European Consolidated Tape, so equities, shares, and ETFs. The tape is going live in July, so in not too long. It is
and everyone's ready for it.
Everyone's ready? No, you say that, but everyone is ready, actually. So the data contributors, the venues, they've had a relatively short kind of timeline to get everything ready to give us the data, and I would say most of them are ready to go. Of course, that's on the venue side. We also have to get all of the market participants ready, and we're doing great, right? We got the likes of Bloomberg, Quant House, Exegy, Refinitiv, all ready to go.
And you're talking later on, so you've got a panel. We're sort of forward guessing here a little bit, but tell us a little bit about what you expect to have on the panel. What if you're thinking about everyone who's there and listening to it, what lessons do you want them to come away with? What do you want them to be talking about? What do you want them to be thinking and musing on after they've heard you speaking today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the panel is going to be a really interesting one because we've got some really great panelists alongside me, and we're going to be talking about the use cases of the tape, because obviously now it's very theoretical. The market has wanted the tape for many, many years, and now it's time to okay, we've got it. What are we actually going to do with it? So that's probably the first thing. The second thing is we're going to cover a little bit some of the maybe the unintended consequences of launching the tape. We've never had anything like this in Europe ever before. So obviously it's a huge market structure change. And then of course we're going to be talking about the timeline and whether everyone can actually meet it.
There's such a collision of technology at the moment that's creating these sort of opportunities. And I think people are recognizing the advantage to really engage with it all. And I guess that's what's been driving a lot of your recent success as a business.
The inbound is or rather the live projects are really interesting because you can kind of divide them into things that are the right timing and things that are new, and so there's a lot of new ventures, new innovative marketplaces, digital assets, etc. But what we thought were new 15 years ago, the likes of multilateral trading facilities as a result of MiFID and crypto exchanges, they're now legacy tech.
Passe.
So, and so they're up for a refresh. So if you combine that with the sort of regulatory drivers in the market, things like the Digital Operational Resilience Act, DORA, and MiCA, Marketing Crypto Assets Directives and Regulation, these venues now need to, not only are they on older tech, but they're also, which needs a refresh, but they're meeting a load of new upfront regulatory requirements that are coming in. So it's a very interesting time because it's prompting the revisiting of that technology strategy.
I think this sort of move to extended marketing hours is starting to stress legacy systems, and I think that's going to be a big challenge for the market. So, interesting business models, people looking at being innovative, but the downstream impact on the participants in the market is their infrastructure ready for that? But more importantly, are their operations ready for that? Because you can put in the right technology, but suddenly your staff have got to operate longer hours, weekends, nights, etc. You've got less time to kind of fix things that have gone wrong.
The decision cycle is perhaps faster because the requirements are coming in thick and fast. But also the appetite to be able to be more nimble with the business model is also quicker. So everything's accelerating. Got to be reliable.
Yeah.
You've got to be resilient. But everything needs to be high performance.
This is the first Exchange Tech Summit from the A-Team Group. Tell us a little bit about what you're expecting to hear, some of the themes you want to hear covered, what the conversations you're having in the room at the moment are.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's the same topics that we're probably going to touch upon. Tokenization later on, retail participation, the extended trading hours, or the 24/5 or 24/7 have been interesting. It was really interesting to see Nikki Beatty land some punches earlier on about the cost of market data.
Firms want access, but they don't want any access. They want easy access. They want cost-effective access.
Yeah.
And I think we're coming to a bit of a tipping point when it comes to market data and how complex it can be.
This is exactly what you expect to see from such a conference, is this melting pot of different views, the pros, the cons, and people for and against.
Where are you seeing the sort of real appetite and innovation at the moment?
So there is innovation at many levels. What we're seeing is in some of the larger organizations, because those platforms are very, very, very well established.
Yeah.
And also mission critical, so they're not the sorts of things that you move on very quickly. Then actually we're seeing new ventures being launched on new platforms that are being built by us.
Yeah.
So established players, big platforms running in the background, supporting their main business, but they want to do something new.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting area. What's really interesting about the space is that we do see new entrants.
Yeah.
We're also seeing quite a lot of interest from the established larger players, and for them, introducing a new platform is an easier way of doing things rather than actually trying to navigate the upgrade or the change of use of something that's already established and quite large.
Yeah.
So we are
seeing. It's not just trying to put a Ferrari engine in a beat up Toyota.
Exactly. Yeah. And or even it's just the size and scale of these projects, and of course they're all in every single sense they're mission critical platforms. And one of the other areas that we visited on the panel was around what's the trade-off, or is there a trade-off between performance, resilience, and speed to market? And actually, you could argue all of them are table stakes now, because you've got to be reliable.
Yeah,
you've got to be resilient, but everything needs to be high performance.
Yeah.
So thankfully, we're built on a platform which is
pretty high performance.
Which is pretty high performance and pretty reliable.
The other conversation that's happening later on, or actually might even be as we speak, is the tokenization piece.
Yeah,
that's been the mot du jour for most of this year, alongside probably AI tucked in just behind.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about where you sit on that.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, just to sort of put A to bed, and I think let's not cover that because everyone talks about it, and B, ultimately it's a generally applicable technology that's impacting all industries. It's not a specific thing to exchanges or markets, and however people use their product, enhance their products, or use in development. I think it's not really relevant to the bigger drivers in the market, such as shorter settlement, extended hours, and so on. Tokenization is interesting because it sort of fits between the two, which is there's kind of a technology play, but there's also a market structure type play there as well. You're seeing, you've seen this sort of parallel market grow up of, crypto trading, maybe more retail than institutional. Definitely those two are coming together. Certainly over the last couple of years, we've started to see real traction of institutional players looking at the digital market. And for us, we've already this year, we've had 2 projects in the digital asset space. One interesting in the States is kind of like a new ATS, and then working with a broker in EMEA in terms of connecting them both to liquidity providers and also to end clients. So I think what our view on it and where we kind of sit, we're not about to become a blockchain company, but hopefully what we're helping is some of the connectivity and integration of traditional market infrastructure that's deployed at there's agency brokers, for instance, to this new world of DeFi. I think definitely you're starting to see a growth in digital tokenized instruments, real world assets that have been tokenized, and I think the interesting thing that's going to get it traction is actually coming up with new investment opportunities, and maybe taking some things that are liquid, creating a tokenized market and secondary trading, rather than just trying to effectively, reshape everything that's already there. So, again, like completely re-tokenize equity markets. Some of that stuff is actually happening in the States, but I think where you're going to get the interest is new investment opportunities, as opposed to just spend money to change all your tech to basically do what you're doing before a little bit more efficiently. I'm not sure that's as great a story. So I think, but it's definitely coming.
I know that as I say, tokenization is a hot topic. It's where everyone's been moving and talking. And I think you're coming in with a sort of fairly contrarian sort of viewpoint today as well on that. You're not as I think that it's probably the conversation that people don't expect you to be having on that thing. Tell us where you stand, what sort of conversation you're having today, and what your sort of hot take, your takeaway is going to be from it.
Yeah, well, it was interesting, as you mentioned, to have those primary conversations during the break session now and speak to people around, because everyone's expecting, when they saw me talking on this tokenization panel, everyone expected me to have that view that tokenization is that I'm pro tokenization, or that we are pushing as Equidex for tokenization, etc. Essentially, that idea comes from the fact that tokenization is a retail driven topic. You have extension of market hours to 24/7 or 5. That's a retail driven conversation. Tokenization, same here, and understandably, bringing tokenization into an equity landscape is essentially a tax. By that, it's very simple. Look at it this way: there's one stock, one ISIN, 2 settlement chain. Two settlement rails, not chain. One is the tokenized one, and the other one is the usual CCP settlement CSD cycle. At this stage here, your tokenization becomes not a feature; it becomes a tax, because reconciliation has a cost. If you see what I mean. So I'll just say this: it's when plumbing needs fixing, it gets fixed quietly. And the plumbing that does not fixing, basically end up with a 3-year deck.
Tokenization as a tax is a really interesting claim, and probably something I haven't actually heard people talking about it so far. Well, as a catchphrase, it works. It works, doesn't it? But I think alongside that, it's a really interesting take, and as you're saying it, solving a problem that doesn't need to be solved is fundamentally the thing that we see most in fintechs that aren't working. So, I've had 700 episodes of this podcast. I've spoken to people for 26 years in the space, and there are so many great bits of technology that solve problems that don't need to be solved. And I think the things that really take off are where that needs to be solved. But I imagine on the flip side of the argument, there's a lot of people saying that they're saying, the system's broken, tokenization is the answer. This is why we need to get on board with it.
Yes.
How do you sort of counter this sort of massive wave of people who are saying this is a problem, tokenization is the answer? That's where we're going now.
I do not counter it necessarily. I'm just saying the question is, it's not that we need tokenization. Obviously, we need tokenization. That's the future, if you'd like.
Yeah.
But the question is, when is that future?
Okay.
You know? And the future for me is not now.
Yeah.
We are. I mean, but we're an industry that love to be avant-garde and love to talk about stuff that are years ahead. You know, we've done that for the CTP for the last 12 years. Yeah. And just seeing the lights now. You know, I've seen you earlier on with Veronica here. So. That's exactly what we're talking about here. So we're going to talk about 24/7 for another 3 years before it actually really maybe settles or lands. It's a different story. But when we're talking about tokenization, it's going to be another thing here. Is it the future? Yes. The problem here is going to be the adoption. You know, if we all had a magic wand by which overnight we switch from the legacy infrastructure into tokenization, I'll be the first supporter to that. Because why not?
Yeah.
You know, why not? But there is a question mark here on the cost of implementing that tokenization today for the wider industry. I mean, not for the retail brokers. It makes sense for the retail brokers, of course, but they don't live alone. They're not isolated. It's not a walled garden. Retail space. They need the GCMs. They need the vendors. So it's a whole ecosystem around that. So the question is, what's the cost of adopting the tokenization versus the regular, post-trade arrangements today? And in there, you end up having more cost to implement than actual benefit. It's basically marginal gains for non-marginal costs.
Tell me a little bit about what you think is keeping people awake at the moment.
What's keeping people awake? Well, if you go to any of these conferences, right, lots of things that we're talking about, 24/7 trading, tokenization, etc. Again, sorry to harp on market data pricing, but I do think that is the number one.
I've heard exactly the same.
It's a big topic at the moment because firms want access, but they don't want any access. They want easy access. They want cost-effective access. Yeah. And I think we're coming to a bit of a tipping point when it comes to market data and how complex it can be. People want it to be easy, and I think that's really keeping people awake, because one of the objectives of EuroCTP is to show how much liquidity there really is in European markets. And that's what the aim of all of these initiatives is, especially with EuroCTP. So I think we really need to start being able to compete with other global markets by showing that, yes, it's fragmented, but it doesn't need to be so expensive. It doesn't need to be so complex to access it.
Yeah. So what do you think will be some of the mega trends that we'll be seeing over the course of the next couple of years in this industry?
So to carry on the sort of prediction theme, I think we have to ask the question whether these kind of markets end up in Europe and the rest of the world. Obviously, they're grabbing the headlines in the US. There are one or two regulatory jurisdictions here in Europe that have started to make noises about that. So that's a very exciting space. And I think overall, although the take-up and the speed of take-up of digital assets and crypto markets has varied, and we've kind of taken some time to settle on where those marketplaces are going. Actually, with the regulation as it is now, we are seeing a lot of interest in stable coins. We're seeing a lot of interest in crypto markets. A lot of marketplaces are looking at alternative asset types. And what do they all need? They all need an infrastructure that can be nimble and move with them at the same time. And so it's a very, I wouldn't say it's a reset, but it's a very exciting time for the market.